Gear Solid 4 is the game that PlayStation 3 owners have been waiting for. A game so big it could barely fit on a Blu-ray disc. A game so big that it's caused PlayStation 3 sales to spike. But I've never really understood the hype. Probably because I've never really understood the franchise. A couple summers ago, me and a friend played Twin Snakes on the GameCube, and the best way to describe it is we fumbled through the game long enough to beat it. And once we did, I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to think of the game. The production value was outstanding, but definitely not one of the most intuitive or replayable games. The cutscenes were obscenely long, but I felt I had no room to complain as long as I was being entertained. 2 years later, I find myself playing through the PlayStation trilogy, just so I can review the fourth one. Now you can see why it's taken me so long to get here. We all know that 4 is the rage nowadays with video games, but it's also that way with movies. Nobody seems to notice that. I also got a bandana for pre-ordering this game. I think I'm gonna wear it.
Wow, is Snake being shattered into a million pieces? That, children, is what we call a rhetorical question, which means you're not allowed to post comments about how wrong I am. Every Metal Gear Solid game has had an awesome introduction, so I can't wait to see this one. Well, how about that? A console game that has to install itself before you can start playing. That seems unprecedented. But I get to play after that, right?
Now, you have answered 9 out of 10 questions right, Melissa.
I really don't get it.
Now, if you get it wrong...
Crying out loud. Hideo Kojima is the creator and continued director of the Metal Gear Solid series, and it seems that he's in the same category as Quentin Tarantino because he can create anything, and I do mean anything, and it'll be labeled as art. And when I say that I honestly don't like it, I'll be seen as a lowbrow. By the way, Death Proof sucked ass. When the game finally started up, I found that it was worth the wait. The graphics are outstanding, and if you disagree, it's obviously the year 2011 and you're watching a really old review. Rendered shadows are still made out of Legos, but I guess I've grown used to that. The gameplay has been greatly improved. There's less thinking and more shooting, to the point in which it is now a full-on third-person shooter. Sometimes I just call this game Metal Gears of War. I don't care what you say, I thought of that joke. Yeah, they look really similar, but Gears of War doesn't have an iPod. Okay, I think I've heard enough of this. Now, the game isn't completely mindless. There's plenty of strategies to engage in with your night vision snake eye and camouflage bodysuit. It's all good high-definition fun. But it's impossible for you to ignore just how combat-heavy the game is. This guy, Drebin, and his awkwardly entertaining monkey can provide you with like a billion guns when I only use 2. Automatic and gratuitous. The only thing that's heavier in this game is the story. Metal Gear Solid games have always been about telling an epic narrative. The plot of number 4 is very similar to past Metal Gears in that you're still trying to stop Ocelot from being a big meanie face who won't play nice. You're thrown into the middle of combat, but you're not really on anybody's side, so that's a good excuse to shoot anybody you want. But you can't just pick up this game and go, because it assumes that you've already played the past 3 and know the whole backlog of characters that they present. It's not just Guns of the Patriots, it's also my big fat Metal Gear Solid reunion. It's like they made a concerted effort to cram every character they can into this game. The cast consists of Metal Gear, just like my Japanese animes. I love to reload during battle. My brother! I promise I won't get in the way. I've been lying my ass off.
Today is April 30th. Our anniversary is April 30th.
I'm not dead yet. That bitch stole my clothes!
You were injected with fox dye. My mother had hairy armpits and I can sing the Fibonacci sequence.
Also,
I can't believe I'm being hit on by the famous Solid Snake.
Was mentioned but not pictured. Don't get the idea that it just rehashes itself over and over again, because there are new characters and a brand new set of freak bosses for Snake to murder. Soliloquizing bosses is a staple of the Metal Gear Solid series, along with plot twist. And while the context is usually different, the style is always the same. Just say that 2 people are related, or in the case of Metal Gear Solid 4, these people are even more related. It really makes me wonder, do these writers plan stuff out ahead, or are they like me and just make stuff up as they go along?
Let's talk about cutscenes.
I began an argument against cutscenes a long time ago, back when the PlayStation FMVs were overshadowing the Nintendo 64 renders. I found it pointless to play a game where you had no interaction for minutes at a time. Metal Gear Solid has no FMVs for the playable characters. It is all in-game, and it tends to overstay its welcome, and then some. You can easily run into a 10-minute cutscene that is interrupted by a codec call that transitions into more cutscene. I am not joking when I tell you that I have left my PlayStation to do other things while a cutscene ran. More than once, I forgot where I was going and what my objective was because the cutscene had halted the game flow. But Metal Gear Solid 4 takes my argument and uses it for toilet paper. I truly enjoy these cutscenes because so much care has been put into them. The graphics might be great, but the motion is disturbingly lifelike. Polygons never intersect, and lip syncing is dead on. I still want to hate this game because after marathoning these 4 Kojima collections, every other cutscene is just going to be a disappointment. Heck, the artist could probably make a cutscene of a guy taking a dump and it would still look great. Now that I think about it, they do. I guess I'd recommend this game more than not because the elements come together pretty nicely, but you should only play it if you've been able to swallow the other tactical espionage actions that came before it. Metal Gear Solid 4 is my favorite PlayStation 3 game, out of the 2 that I own, but more impressively, it's my favorite of the franchise. Speaking of which, yeah, you knew I was going to get there. I'm not all that big of a fan, but I know talking bad about classics is going to earn me some hate mail. Here goes. I feel that the first Metal Gear Solid game is a bit overpraised. I hate how the gameplay seemed to change every 10 minutes, and I counted 3 separate occasions where I had to majorly backtrack, sometimes to just wait in a room. It's cool how it breaks the fourth wall, but it usually comes at the cost of frustration. When it comes to the matter of the original versus Twin Snakes, I recommend Twin Snakes. It just makes sense. If you're going to play a game that's so focused on cinematics, you might as well play the one that's more, well, cinematic. Right from the get-go, I loved Metal Gear Solid 2. Snake on a tanker fighting the Russians, yeah. And the feelings of happiness lingered for quite a while. But it was right around the time that Raiden was grabbing dick and balls that the plot was getting so twisted and hard to understand, I began to lose interest. A character is really cool if it has the foresight to plan out an epic plot, but when you have Solidus, Ocelot, and Liquid all say it, it starts to lose its meaning. All of this taking place in a 35-minute cutscene right before the boss fight, which only lasts about 2 minutes. Frame rate aside, number 3 had the best graphics of that generation, and it needed it, because I had a really hard time taking the game seriously after that 007 intro. This one had some pretty serious HCI issues, which led to quite a few unhappy visits to and pissed off exits from GameFAQs.com, usually with, "Seriously, how was I supposed to know that?" said somewhere in the middle. Collectively, these games are pretty imaginative, and if you get the chance, I think you should play them.
Some of you might be wondering, just why do I have a PlayStation 3? Well, 3 reasons.
First, to play Metal Gear Solid 4, of course. Second, I can use this to warm up bums in the winter. This thing does give off a lot of heat. Sometimes I refer to it as my interactive floor heater. Third, it is the best DVD player I have ever owned, and that's not just because of the Blu-ray capabilities. You get the idea that this thing just doesn't mess around. First fast forward speed, 1.5. After that, 10. Then 30. Then 120. Yeah, this thing rules.
Russell, I got some juice for you.
You know, Rusty and I was talking. I think you should review Rock Band.
Do you want the juice or not?
Okay. Looks like Rusty and I are gonna have a party up in here.